and out of jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. This should not be softened at the edges. The red line should not go pink. That is the Prime Minister's position, and I support her.
You say, you're talking about the Conservative manifesto, June 2017, was very, very categorical about single market, customs union and the like. But also, so was Theresa May when she talked about delivering Brexit, when she, I would say elected by Tory MPs, not by the Tory party faithful, never got that far, when every other candidate dropped out when she became Conservative leader in 2016. Do you feel that if she doesn't deliver on that, that she made her way to be the leader of the party under false pretences?
No, I think the Prime Minister will do what she said, but some members of the Cabinet are consistently briefing against her and trying to undermine what she is aiming to do. Collective responsibility doesn't seem to be operating in the usual way, and that is concerning. So what I was writing to do was to support the Prime Minister, and it's a pity the Cabinet doesn't support her as fully as it should in delivering on the Conservative Party manifesto. Do
you want to name those Cabinet Ministers?
No, you know who they are as well as I do.
Well, then you may as well name them.
Well, all right. We know that Greg Clark has been making speeches saying essentially that we should remain in the single market and customs union. We know that the Treasury has been consistently trying to do its best to frustrate Brexit, and this is a matter of great concern.
Should the Prime Minister sack Philip Hammond and Greg Clark?
It's not for me to advise the Prime Minister on how to
If you were Theresa May, if you were her Prime Minister in this scenario, would you sack ministers who spoke out?
That is quite a leap for me to put myself in Mrs May's shoes. I'm not the Prime Minister. These are matters for the Prime Minister to determine. But it is unhelpful to her and to the country to have a cabinet that does not abide by collective responsibility.
Do you think that the ministers who are trying to undermine her policy, Greg Clark, Philip Hammond and others, do you think that they want the best for the country and genuinely believe that what they would term a hard Brexit, what many Leavers would just simply call Brexit, will actually be damaging to the country, and they are trying their best to sort of salvage what they can from that Brexit decision? Or do you think they are basically secretly trying to keep us inside the EU and deny the will of the British people?
Well, you must ask them that question themselves to find out what their motives are. The effect of what they're trying to do is to water down the referendum result and the general election, where both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party committed to implementing the result of the referendum. And I think there is a problem that parts of the British establishment have never really accepted the referendum result, regret the fact that the British people didn't accept the advice and wisdom of the great and the good. And if you listen to the speeches made in the House of Lords over the withdrawal bill, you'll see the extraordinary condescension from the great and the good to the British people. And I think that is a problem within the British establishment.
Do you think they're going to win, though, that they're going to stop Brexit from happening?
No, because the withdrawal bill is now through. So if nothing else happens, we leave the European Union on the 29th of March next year in UK law and in EU law.
And is it your view right now that a no-deal Brexit is still better than a bad deal Brexit?
Oh, of course, yes. And if the government came back, which I very much doubt it will, but if it were to come back in October, saying we're going to give the EU £39 billion in return for no more than a promise of good faith in a trade negotiation, such a deal would not get through Parliament, in my view.
And if that deal didn't get through Parliament, if your group of 60 MPs who are Eurosceptic members of the European Research Group, DUP's 10 MPs, you've got about 6 to 8 Labour MPs who are staunchly Eurosceptic as well, if that were the case, Theresa May's government would fall, would it not? And you would be bringing what Lord Hague has talked about, this chaos, revolt, resignations and a leadership election.
No, that doesn't follow because of the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, which has changed things. Under the Fixed Term Parliament Act...
Well, no, that's about elections. That's nothing to do with the leadership of the Conservative Party.
The two, in a way, become the same. That until that act was brought through, a government could say that any individual motion was a vote of confidence and could therefore challenge people to bring down the government or to support a particular motion. Since that act, that doesn't apply, that the two are now entirely separate. The vote of confidence is as set out in the Fixed Term Parliament Act according to a specific form of words, and all other motions in front of the House are not confidence motions. And that's not confidence in the government or for an election. And so, no, the Prime Minister in the unlikely position that she doesn't come back with a good deal, could easily remain in office and could maintain the support of people like me to remain as Prime Minister whilst the implementation bill founded.
But she couldn't possibly stay in office having lost all authority. If she was proposing, this £39 billion or possibly more bill being paid in return for a no-deal Brexit, she couldn't possibly maintain her authority, could she?
People keep on saying that the Prime Minister can't remain in office, and she's remaining in office very steadfastly and successfully, and has a great deal of support. Interestingly, a great deal of support in the country. I think people out of London admire the Prime Minister hugely for her determination. I think that if she found that one agreement was not accepted, that she would get on with her job, which is what she's been doing. But I think the whole point of this discussion is to reinforce the strength of the Prime Minister's position in her negotiations with the EU, to say that she can get a good deal and that she can ignore the naysayers in her cabinet.
Is it the case, actually, that because she's in a weak position in terms of being in a minority government, relying on the Brexiteers in the, not just in your group, but also in the DUP, that actually she can say to the European Union, I'm not going to be able to take a stitch-up fudge of a deal because I can't get it through Parliament. I won't be able to survive. And if I can't and I'm out, you're looking at a Jeremy Corbyn government and then all deals are off.
Well, I don't think we'll get to a Jeremy Corbyn deal, but I think that it does strengthen the Prime Minister's hand. The knowledge that she can only get a good deal through Parliament means that she can be tougher in negotiations with the European Union than would otherwise be impossible. And bear in mind, they're doing their best to be tough with us, and they should be stood up to.
And the big cabinet meeting at Chequers on Friday. Every single week we have another crunch week. This is the time for her to get off the fence. Do you think she's going to be able to maintain the attempt at fudge that there has been to keep both sides of the cabinet, both sides of the party happy? Or do you think after Friday she's going to have to come down on one side or the other?
We'll have to wait and see. I don't know that it's very unclear as to what is going to happen at Chequers on Friday. But the key for me is that the government should do what it said it would do in the Conservative Party manifesto, that when politicians promise things to voters, they have an absolute duty to deliver on them. We were very, very clear in the manifesto, and nothing that happens at Chequers should undermine or fudge that clarity. OK, and
just finally, in terms of the politics, what do you fear most, Brexit not happening or a Jeremy Corbyn government?
I think the two are much more likely to go together rather than in contradistinction. So I think if Brexit didn't happen, that would be the greatest risk to the government. If Brexit happens, we will not get Jeremy Corbyn. It will be a great triumph for the country, and people will feel that the democratic will has won, and that's the key. This is all about democracy. Do people's votes count, or can they be overridden, stopped, blocked by a small establishment cabal?
Just finally, on a happier note than Brexit, the nation's attentions are turning to the big match tonight in the World Cup, England playing at Colombia. Will you be watching?
Well, I hope so. And I was listening to the Colombian ambassador on another radio channel recently, and it sounds to be something that's going ahead with a great deal of goodwill between the two nations. But only one side can win, and let's hope that's England.
Prediction for the score?
Oh, I'm not the right person to give sporting tips. Let's hope England wins as well as we did against Panama.
Thank you very much, Jacob Rees Mogg, Tory MP for North East Somerset, some say a future leadership contender, chair of the European Research Group and member of the Brexit Select Committee.